bright armor, honorable duels, epic sword battles. Everything you know about medieval warfare is wrong. 90% of medieval war was burning fields, looting grain stores, leaving peasants to starve. This was called Chevauchée, winning without ever stepping onto a battlefield. Sieges. Wait for months. Let those inside die of hunger. At Agincourt, French knights stuck in the mud were finished off with daggers. The real killer wasn't even the sword. 80% of soldiers died from disease, nameless, in the mud. Medieval warfare was not glorious, just merciless. Everyone thinks medieval warfare was all about knights' glorious duels, bright armor, honorable fights, noble heroes, swords clashing, horses neighing, banners waving. Sure, those existed, but the real story is much darker, much uglier, and much more disturbing. What you call medieval warfare was actually organized starvation, disease, and deliberate terror. And the tactics they used were brutal enough to make even modern soldiers uncomfortable. Geneva Convention? Doesn't exist. War Crimes Tribunal? They can't even imagine it. Distinction between civilian and soldier? Laughable. This is important. We're talking about the Middle Ages, roughly 500 to 1500 AD, 1,000 years. For 1,000 years, there was constant war across Europe. Constant. Lords clashing with each other, kingdoms fighting over land, the church launching crusades. And this state of constant warfare had changed the very nature of war. Because nobody could fight large-scale epic battles every single day. So they developed other methods. Far more cunning, far more effective, far more terrifying methods. Hollywood lied to you. I'm serious. Have you seen Braveheart? Two armies face each other, clashing on a massive battlefield, soaked in blood and sweat, but ultimately an honorable fight, right? Face to face, man to man, soldier to soldier. Wrong. Large-scale field battles were extremely rare in the Middle Ages. Statistically speaking, a lord might see maybe 2 or 3 major field battles over a 40-year reign. Maybe, if he was lucky. Why? Because nobody was stupid. If you sent your army into open field combat and lost, it was over. You'd lose all your soldiers in one go, your lands would be left defenseless, your enemy would swallow you whole. Game over. No chance to start again. Losing on the battlefield didn't just mean losing that day. It meant losing all your noble titles, your lands, your family's future. You might even end up rotting in a dungeon waiting for someone to pay your ransom. So smart commanders. And these were the ones who survived. Avoided real battle. The risk was too high. Even if you won, the losses would be devastating. But if not battle, what would they do, you ask? This is where things get ugly. Very ugly. 90% of medieval warfare was this: marching into enemy territory and burning everything to the ground. This was called Chevauchée. In French, it carries a meaning something like an elegant horse ride. Sounds pleasant, doesn't it? Like you're going on a picnic. In reality, this is how it worked. A lord would gather his army and march into enemy territory. Then, in a systematic, methodical, and merciless fashion, he would burn the crops, all of them. Wheat fields, barley fields, everything. He would loot the grain stores. Winter stockpiles were either stolen or burned, no middle ground. He would kill or steal the livestock, cows, sheep, pigs, the lifeblood of the economy. He would set villages on fire. Wooden houses turned to ash in seconds. He would destroy the mills. No mill means no flour. No flour means no bread. He would tear up the vineyards. Wine production would cease. He would cut down the fruit trees for long-term damage. The goal was simple: Economically strangle the enemy lord without forcing him into battle. Kill the peasants through starvation, and the enemy's tax revenue dries up. No revenue means no army. No army means you win. Without firing a single arrow on a battlefield. And let's add this. These peasants were innocent people. They had nothing to do with the war. A man woke up that morning to plow his field. By evening, his home was burning. His winter supplies were gone. His family would go hungry. But in medieval logic, they were the enemy lord's property. In other words, targets to be damaged, just like destroying the enemy's castle. Except this castle was made of living people. Horrifying? Yes. Effective? Absolutely. During the 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453, the English carried out dozens of chevauchées across France. Some lasted for months, where armies crossed France from end to end, leaving scorched earth in their wake, and peasants died of starvation, cold, and disease, thousands of them, perhaps tens of thousands, and nobody cared because peasants didn't matter. This was the true face of medieval warfare, not glorious, just merciless. All right, let's say you're besieging a massive castle. Thick walls, heavy gates, towering keeps. Now what? Picture what you've seen in movies. Soldiers climbing ladders, heroes ramming the gates, catapults trying to punch through the walls. Looks romantic, doesn't it? Action-packed, exciting. In reality, a siege worked like this. Sit, wait. Wait until those inside die of hunger. I'm serious. Most medieval sieges lasted for months, and nobody would even attempt to storm the castle. Why? Because climbing castle walls was suicide. Simple math. They pour boiling oil from above. Though boiling oil was expensive, so they usually used boiling water, molten lead, or simply heavy rocks. The result was the same: death. Arrows rained down. Medieval archers were incredibly accurate. They could put an arrow through your skull from 50 meters away, no joke. Ladders get pushed over. You fall while climbing from 10 meters up in full armor. Your bones shatter. 9 out of every 10 men who attempt to climb die, or at the very least get wounded, crippled, rendered unable to fight again. The math was simple. Sacrifice half your men to get inside the castle, or wait 6 months for those inside to surrender from starvation. Smart commanders waited. They set up camp, surrounded the castle, established checkpoints so nobody could enter or leave, and then they waited. 1 month passed, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. And those inside, they were in a terrible situation. Month 1, food gets rationed, everyone eats less. Children and the elderly get priority. Month 2, the meat runs out. Now it's just bread and water. Morale collapses. Month 3, even the bread runs low. Horses start getting slaughtered. Horse meat tastes awful, but hunger makes you eat anything. Month 4, rats, cats, dogs, everything gets eaten. Leather straps are boiled to extract the gelatin inside. Month 5, disease sets in. Malnutrition is destroying the immune system. Dysentery, typhus, plague. Month 6, people start dying. First the weak, then the elderly, then everyone. During the siege of Antioch in 1098, people who were dying of starvation began eating each other. This is not an exaggeration. It's historical record. The Crusaders were so hungry during the siege that they resorted to cannibalism. Their own chroniclers admitted it. During the siege of Château Gaillard in 1204, the French besieged the castle for 6 months. The English inside sent the women and children out because there was no food left to feed them. The French sent them back because the starvation was weakening those inside, and that suited the French just fine. Those women and children were left trapped at the walls, between two sides, unable to go in, unable to go out. Most of them died of starvation right there at the foot of the castle walls. This was the reality of a medieval siege. Not glorious, just a slow, agonizing death. But knights were honorable warriors, you say. They had codes of honor, rules of chivalry. Yes, if the person across from you was also a knight. This is where the double standard came in. Knights followed rules when fighting each other. Captured knights were treated well. Good food, clean beds, respectful treatment. They were released in exchange for ransom. The family paid up, and home they went. Honorable duels were fought, one-on-one, with fair weapons. A wounded knight would not be killed, treated, and left to recover. Nice, isn't it? Aristocratic brotherhood and all that, gentlemanly conduct, the noble face of the Middle Ages. But when it came to peasants, the rabble, ordinary foot soldiers, there were no rules whatsoever. If a peasant archer shot a knight and got caught, he would generally be tortured and killed because he was considered to have dared to kill a noble. That was unacceptable. At the Battle of Agincourt, 1415, English archers slaughtered French knights with longbows from 200 meters away. French knights were caught in a storm of arrows and died despite their armor. The French were furious. Why? Because peasant archers killing noble knights was a cultural insult. It wasn't honorable. It was unacceptable. French knights had sworn an oath before the battle. If we capture the English archers, we will cut off the 3 fingers they use to draw their bows, so they can never shoot again. It's similar to how the Romans looked down on archers. Aristocrats throughout history genuinely despised ranged weapons. Real men fought up close, face to face. Good money was made, but ordinary French soldiers, they killed them. All of them. Because they had no ransom value. The chivalric code was very selective. It only applied to important people. Everyone else didn't quite count. Knights were impressive, but they were a small fraction of the army. The real workforce was ordinary infantry. These men were recruited from peasants by force. When a lord said, "I'm raising an army," peasants dropped everything and showed up, whether they wanted to or not. Training? None. Or at most, a few weeks of basic drill. Hold the spear like this. Stay in formation with the man beside you. Don't run. That was it. Equipment? Terrible. Wealthy soldiers wore armor, chainmail, plate armor. An ordinary infantryman? If he was lucky, he had a leather vest. Most didn't even have that. Maybe a thick tunic, maybe a heavy felt jacket. That's it. Weapons? Usually a spear or a bow. Swords were a luxury. Swords were expensive to make, so only the wealthy carried them. Most peasant soldiers used farm tools as weapons: scythes, axes, hoes. And these men were driven onto the battlefield. Across from them stood professional soldiers, heavily armored, trained, experienced. You know how to hold a spear. Maybe. Frankly, a terrifying situation. Most infantry died in the first 10 minutes of battle. The first charge, the first clash, thousands of men colliding at once, pushing, shoving, screaming, chaos. And in the middle of this chaos, an ordinary peasant is trying to stay alive. No armor, no training, no experience. His only chance, the man beside him doesn't run. The formation must not break. Because if the formation breaks, everyone dies. Medieval battles were essentially shoving matches between infantry formations. Who holds out longer? Who panics first? The side that panics starts running. The side that runs gets cut down from behind. Getting cut down from behind means massacre. At the Battle of Crécy, 1346, French infantry marched toward English archers. Under a storm of arrows, their comrades falling around them, they kept walking. Why? Because behind them were French knights screaming, "Forward!" Most of the infantry died before ever reaching the enemy line. Arrows, arrows everywhere. The survivors, they clashed with English infantry and they died too. At Crécy, 4,000 French soldiers died, most of them infantry. Nobody recorded their names because they didn't matter. This was the true face of medieval warfare. While knights claimed glory and fame, thousands of nameless soldiers gave their lives in the mud. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Medieval Reality. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode or what topic you'd like to see covered next, so drop them in the comments below. There is so much more to explore from this fascinating and brutal period of history. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. As always, I'll see you in the next video.